Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the corruption detector, and this is your Red Pill News. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Hope that everyone was able to catch the show we did last night with Dylan, Educating Liberals. It was an excellent show. Had a lot of many good times doing that show. Tonight, we are going to be speaking with the unfortunate victim of medical kidnapping in the state of Colorado. Cyndie Abcug is going to be joining us. Her disabled son was stolen by the Children's Social Services. I don't know what it's specifically called in Colorado. It's called Children's Protective Services, where I'm from. But Cyndie's going to be joining us to speak about her case. Also in the second hour, Juan O, Savin and Yensid are going to be joining us. Just want to give a couple of quick shout-outs to people in the audience. I see we've already got patriots from Gainesville here. We've got a couple people from Texas. Let's see, Oregon, another Oregon, Woodstock, Ontario, Canada. Let's see, who else is in the audience? We've also got people from Gainesville, another couple of people from Florida, Lima, Ohio, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And it looks like we've got lots of people filtering in now. San Diego, Australia, Tampa, California, Maryland, Alabama, Northeastern Pennsylvania, Portage, Utah, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Kalamazoo, Michigan, New York, Sarasota, Florida, New Zealand, excellent, Texas, Virginia, Tallahassee, Florida, South Dakota, Michigan, MAGA country, I like that one. If I could have everyone in the audience please help us out tonight. I was told by several people that no notification went out on this show, and it's a very, very important show. So if everyone would please be so kind as to share it on their favorite social media platforms so that we can get the message out. We're going to go ahead and switch screens here, and we're going to begin speaking with Cyndie. And here we are. All right, Cyndie, hello, and welcome to Red Pill 78. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well. I want to thank you for coming on and speaking with us. This is a really heartbreaking case. So I became aware of it when I was sent the article from PJ Media, Megan Fox, excellent reporting by Megan Fox. And this is something that's all too familiar to us here. You know, we've had Michael Volpe on the program before. We've spoken about many other issues such as this, parents and children both being victimized. With what is ostensibly a kidnapping by a state entity, and somebody with absolutely no legal standing. You know, I mean, they decide that they want to come into someone's home and that they know better than the parents, and they take your child away. So, please tell us exactly what happened here, and how long has it been since you've seen your son?
Thank you. Today's day 45. We haven't talked to him or seen him since he's been taken. And we miss him a lot. It's really been difficult. So we're just keeping moving forward. We're trying to get the word out. I just want to shout out to the general audience that 46 days ago, if you would have told me that something like this was possible, I would not have been aware of it. I just would have thought there's got to be more to the story. If somebody tells you that CPS has, removed a child, I did not know this was going on. So it's been a real enlightening 45 days here.
And the horrible irony of the issue is that you're not even from Colorado. You actually moved to Colorado to get better care for your child, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what happened?
Yeah, originally, so I'll start off with the timeline. About a year and a half ago, I have a 7-year-old son, Michael, who has an uncontrolled seizure disorder. I'm the mother of 4. I have 2 older boys. I have a daughter, 15, who's here with me, and I have a 7-year-old disabled son. Due to his seizure disorder, and he has a possible genetic condition. They're still trying to pinpoint that down. He is intellectually and developmentally disabled. So his doctor, about a year and a half ago, transferred us out here to Colorado Children's Hospital to try to get to the bottom of what was causing his seizures. We got out here. He enrolled into kindergarten. I enrolled him into kindergarten. It was a half day. Out here in Colorado, it's a little bit different than Florida. They have half days. He was doing okay in a half day at the school because there was a teacher and 2 aides in a small classroom. When he was getting ready to go into the first grade, I'm in Douglas County, Colorado. The Douglas County School District kind of had like a battle between his head doctor, his head neurologist at the hospital, who had written a letter to the school saying that he needed support, that he needed to have a paraprofessional. He needed somebody to help him do his activities, be close to him on the playground, use the restroom safely, open his lunch. And what ended up happening was the school declined those services. And I decided, instead of moving forward with any kind of legal action or mediation, or trying to go take some years to get that, follow the doctor's orders, that I would homeschool him. So that was a small feat to take on. And that was in November of last year. And then by January, I had the, out here it's also called the Child Protective Services. Seems to be under the umbrella of the Department of Human Services, which is their larger organization. And this caseworker came to my front door in January and wanted to interview both of my children. I'm out here with the 2 minor children. And I asked her, what was going on, what was this about? And she told me that it was a possible misrepresentation of illness. And at that point, I just, gave her all the doctor's information and told her to call the doctor. I didn't see any problem with her interviewing my children at that point, calling the doctors, I should say. Mm-hmm. So she did a quick interview and she left. I wasn't aware that she should have interviewed my son according to ADA guidelines. I wasn't aware that, my daughter, that she had to, interview my daughter with certain guidelines as well, due to a trauma situation my daughter had had. And she came back again in February. When she came back again in February and interviewed the kids for a second time and left again, still no action. She told me she was continuing to gather medical records to prove whoever this, quote, anonymous, you never get to face your accuser in these calls, which was another thing.
Real quick, Cyndie, did it appear that there was it contentious when you removed your son from the school? Like, did they seem to object to it, or did they raise any concerns with you when you were pulling him out?
I think what happened was, they were legally supposed to be providing him with this service because he has a right to a free and public education. Yeah. So there's an attorney. He ended up getting an attorney that got involved through Colorado disability law, and she even tried to get them, because of his disability, to get the proper services so he could go to school. Yeah. And the school didn't want to give it to him, and the principal said to me, well, I'm not spending money on that. And I thought, well, okay, I don't have any other disabled kids that need services, so I didn't know that it was such a big deal. And so it became a battle. And the one day that he did go, the school nurse was upset because she had to stay with them because they wanted to do a trial. And she dropped his heart monitor in the toilet. So, Lord. At that point, he was wearing some kind of testing monitor for 30 days. And now that went down the toilet, literally. And
now, did they replace it? Or was that up to you to end up replacing the equipment? It was up to the insurance company. Okay. They didn't replace it. They said it was his fault. Wow. So, and he's not supposed to be in the bathroom. And I think you have those letters there with you. I think you have the letters from the doctors. And, I don't have the paperwork in front of me. I've done several other shows. You can go up and look them up, where I'm actually showing the documentation that I've given to you of, the attorney's letters to the school, the doctor's letters to the school that has, a laundry list of his seizures, his ataxia. He needs someone to help him put his coat on, open his lunch, go to the bathroom. He needs this kind of help. We're not talking about small help. And so he ended up being homeschooled. And I think that, to answer your question in kind of a long-winded editorial type way, I think that there was if I was fabricating or making up his illnesses or misrepresenting them, I guess is what they said, it exonerates the school from a lawsuit. Okay, all right. Well, that's I guess that's kind of understandable for them in a twisted way, obviously they don't have the best interest of you or your son or his health and wellness in mind, and so of course, if there are a twisted organization. They're looking to cover their own butts. It's incredible. I mean, you do have just an incredible amount of evidence showing exactly what's wrong with him, and the idea that you would bring this stuff forward, bring forward your concerns, ask for things that you are you should be getting. These are services that your son is deserving and that he is owed, especially under the circumstances. And they want to do whatever they can to make it seem like it doesn't exist and they haven't done anything wrong. So back to what happened with them coming in, and I believe you were at like the second visit they had come, and they said they were still looking for medical records.
They said they were waiting for medical records. During the meantime, I wasn't really going to share much about this. My daughter, it's a trigger, has a history of trauma. She's 15, and for her to be interviewed, it was she was seeing a counselor, and her counselor had wanted her to not be interviewed by the department due to her trauma without therapeutic support. Again, the support. And so the department decided that they weren't going to do that, and they weren't going to follow that professional or clinical recommendation. And my daughter ended up having a suicide attempt 3 days after their interview.
Oh, no.
Because it was so hard for her. She ended up in the ICU. So then they said, well, not our fault. And so then they came back and wanted to interview her for a third time. And on that third time is when I emailed them and said, no, you can't do this, because number one, you have to have somebody who can interview my son, as you can read in the hospital and in his specialist paperwork that I sent you. Mm-hmm. He has cognitive disabilities. I don't talk to him about his illness, so they needed to, and they were asking questions like, when do you have seizures? Are they sick? I try to, I've told him the reason he has all these therapies is that he's in Power Ranger training. So, now they're scaring him with these interviews. So I declined the interview, and after I declined the interview, that's his puppy. I don't know if that's making background noise. You can hear that. Sorry.
Don't worry about that. That's okay.
She after the third interview, when I sent them an email saying, listen, he's too little and too fragile to talk about this stuff with you. My daughter needs therapeutic support. She already had a suicide attempt. It's not that I'm not willing to cooperate. It's just, I don't need your services. And they were trying to offer me, we had a family meeting where 3 of his providers went in. They were trying to offer me, and this is kind of like, I guess, a warning to the folks out there who, because I didn't see this coming. They said, wow, it looks like all these appointments are so hard for you. Why don't we get you an appointment maker, like a medical navigator? And I thought, wow, that sounds like
I said, or a minder. Right? Yeah. They want to keep tabs on you, I would imagine. And then I would think that's an easy way for them to insert themselves into your life so that they can keep constant watch on you and make it that much easier for them to just swoop in and take your child from you.
I never thought about that, but that's a possibility. The night before, and I thought that was a great idea. So here I was, I was under the impression, and had not had the paradigm shift yet, that the Child Protective Services was, the front soldiering lines for funneling in the trafficking.
Yeah.
I had not been open to that yet. I'd not been awake for that. I did not understand that's what was going on. I thought they protected children. If anybody had their kid taken, then guess what? They must be an abuser. That was my mentality. And 45 days later, it's a much different story. I went down to the family meeting the night before this family meeting, where I was really excited about signing for this appointment maker. I had received a call from I'm a little scattered, from a whistleblower, not a whistleblower, inside source, an anonymous inside source from the department, somebody who had retired from there, who had told me that not to sign anything at this meeting. I was going to go down and they were going to, give me this appointment maker. And he said, that service doesn't exist. They're going to take your son and sign something. So I thought, this guy sounded nuts, wow, that's really far-fetched.
Did he tell you how he came across your case? If he was retired, how had he heard about this?
No, I didn't, and I wouldn't. Yeah,
Okay.
I just he did say there was a business model.
Yeah.
There was a business model prepared, and there was some profiling, but he did not tell me. He told me there was a business model, that they had a whole business model worked out on how to take the kids, and that's just about as much as I'll say about that.
Okay.
If it wasn't for him, I would have gone in there and signed up for what they call services. And from what I'm hearing within the past, month and a half, with all the parents that have had their kids medically kidnapped or illegally kidnapped by the state or by their county, one and the same, they have signed up for services. And it's like a dangling carrot saying, if you do this, it's kind of like an intimidating, bullying factor. In my case, I just had enough. As you can see with all the medical stuff, I had enough.
Yeah.
And so when they told me about, they would get me someone to help me with the appointments, I think that's all they could really throw at me. I'm not a drug user. I'm not a, drinker, don't have an anger problem. So when we got to the, which seems to be, and I say those things because those seem to be the things that they contract with for services.
Right.
If you get mad because they take your son or daughter away or all your kids away, then of course you're mad. Then you go to anger management and they decide how long you do that. And then you pay out of pocket and then you lose your job. And then it just tailspins from there, from what I'm seeing. I went in and didn't sign the paper. I asked them to put it in writing. I think you have the writ of habeas corpus there for his illegal detainment.
Yes.
Did you see? Did I send you that? Yeah. So on that, I think my attorney points out that I was asking them to put it in writing. I was asking them, please put this in writing, because what that guy said, I put it in the back of my head. And when they refused to put that in writing, I said, well, I'll take this home and look at it. And within a very short period of time, they told me, I received an email that I needed to go down to the courthouse into room 7 at the courthouse. And I needed to officially sign a paper saying I didn't need the services. And because I said, I finally said to him, I don't need an appointment maker, and I went down and I kept asking, emails back and forth as to, let me roll back a little bit with this.
Okay.
If anybody doesn't know, you're supposed to have, like, I think it's called a summons, or you're supposed to be sent a paper saying why you're going to a court hearing.
Right.
I thought this was some kind of a meeting, and I was sent an email that said to come on down and decline the services. I tried to call everybody to find out what it was, your case number, what was in writing. I couldn't get any paperwork. And so I go down to so I talked to my friend who's an attorney, and I asked him, and he said, this is so weird. I can't find this anywhere in the system. And then I get down there and it's not on what's called a docket, which is on the outside of a courtroom. Name's not on there. So nobody, and it was quiet, quiet at church, on a Friday night, I guess. And so he says, go down to see what, what they have to say. I get down to the courthouse, me and a friend go. About 8 people from the department walk into this courtroom that's empty and kind of dark. And they're, and I thought that was kind of my first, wow, why is there so many people? What's happening? And still no paperwork, which is called a petition, which is something that, in my case, if they're going to take your children, they need to show you what you're being alleged of. So here I am, no crime, no paperwork, no, court subpoena or whatever, no summons to come on down to the court, and they announced that, or the attorney for the department comes over and he wants me to sign a paper that states, I have read the entire petition, which are the allegations against me, and understand my consequences. I declined to sign that. They asked me to fill out a paper for court-appointed counsel, which is an attorney that they will appoint you from the court. Let me get a drink here. From the court, and I was over the income. So the magistrate at that point made a unilateral decision to appoint me court-appointed counsel anyway. I still, at this point, had not seen any allegations or paperwork, and had not seen a petition, and had not seen, did not know the nature of the proceeding.
So they
So then
essentially invited you there for what you assumed was a more informal meeting, when in fact they were actually, you know, preparing to bring some type of charges against you within this Children and Family Services court system.
yeah, well, in a nutshell, they lured me in with the guise of, we're gonna just come on down, very, very casual, folks. Come on down. You just need to officially sign it because we're a department and you got to sign it to the court and say you don't need our services. Just because somebody called, you got to decline it. That's kind of the atmosphere, if you wanted me to build it up.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any, I thought, okay, you know, but I thought it was weird. Why do I have to go to a courthouse to sign it? Can't you just mail it to me? So, but I went because this agency that I thought was, you know, in charge told me to come down there. You know, I went without anything. And then when I got into the courtroom, it was a full-blown hearing.
Wow.
And I know that that's against the law. So that was one of the things I'm hearing. I haven't heard that story yet, but I do hear that they come in and remove the children or child without, you know, due process, and a violation of your constitutional rights.
It seems like it happens a lot in situations where children are homeschooled, especially. Like, it's almost like as soon as they learn that there are kids that are being educated outside of the public education system, they immediately do whatever they can to come and remove them from you.
I haven't noticed that.
Yeah.
That was the situation in my case, and it was about the money. My son gets disability. I think my case, I think, was about the medical situation and about the money, both.
Well, we can definitely get into that.
I do have knowledge that he, somebody did show me the quotas and the different amounts of money that the department got the minute they walked out the door with him. I think it was anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 when they took him out.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, and then there's, of course, his father's passed away. So there's the survivor's benefits. There's the Social Security for his disability. There's a lot of other factors that tie into the money. He's a real money maker for them. Plus, he has a rare condition, and it seems like the rare conditions, the Native American Indian blood, the blonde hair, blue eyes, redheads are real popular with the trafficking, and selling. It's just mind blowing. So I get into the courtroom. The counsel sits down with me, my court-appointed counsel, and she tells me that we're at a temporary custody hearing. And I said, for what? And she said, for your son. And I said, oh, okay. That's news to me. And the department gets up and starts reading a list of allegations, that were false. And the attorney that I'm with says, we don't, I object to this court-appointed. And the magistrate says, no, too many inconsistencies. And don't even have any paperwork. I have none of his medical file. You see the amount of evidence I have sitting there. I have none of his paperwork. I have nothing to show to the court. I have nothing to counteract these false charges or false allegations that they're trying to give me, to even prove that they're wrong. So the magistrate says, we order the child into the custody of the department. It was a whirlwind. So they come straight to my house, and he's playing Jenga with his sister in the living room. And that's the last time I've seen him in 45 days.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's really hard to talk about.
I understand.
And I'm trying to get they told my daughter she would talk to him in a couple of days. Moving forward, just to update you, at that court hearing on May 17th, they wrote on a piece of paper for me to go take a drug test, something, it's called a hair follicle test. I'd never heard of it.
Yeah. And
a urine test. And so they wrote it on a little piece of paper and ripped off an edge. It wasn't official. It was just a ripped off edge. And so I was still once I got home and saw the petition, I said, I better go do this so I can prove them that I don't, do drugs.
Of course.
They didn't put drug charges or drug allegations in the petition, but I just wanted to try to do that. So when I get down to the some offender's lab or some place, I guess, where you go and they cut a big piece of the part of my ponytail off on the top,
Right.
where you go get, where you go get this testing done. I said to the girl when I was done, I'm going to need a copy of that. And she said, oh, no. The only person who gets a copy is the caseworker. Now, I just want to point out the person who wrote this like 10 to 15 pages of allegations that created this emergent situation and this painted this picture of me without giving me any availability of effective counsel, due process, any chance to defend myself when they're taking my son. She wrote this up on a sworn affidavit, and she basically also is the one who wrote the drug test, and she was the one who was going to be getting the drug test results.
Yeah.
So at that point, because of the fact that she had written the false allegations, I'm like, that's not happening. So I asked the girl, I said, I'm not going to just, count on her, the liar. So I said, well, you better write down exactly. I asked the offender lab to write down exactly what they were testing me, like what the name, there's panels and this,
right.
that, like I said, write down exactly what you're doing so I can go tomorrow and get exactly the same test. And what lab do you send it to? And I had gone down and got the exact same test and sent it to the same lab as them, but I did a private pay. And I got my test results within a couple of days. They came back everything negative as I suspected it would. And the department, probably about 4 or 5 days after that, emails me that my drug test came back positive. And do I want to explain to them my drug use? So it's been every angle they've tried to hit me with: the false allegations, the no due process, and then now the falsified drug test. I think, does Megan have that in her article there?
Yes, I believe that was in there.
I think it's in Megan's article, because that happened at the tail end of when she was writing up the article. The girl had emailed me about the drug test, and I thought, wow. So if anybody ever orders you to drug test and you don't do drugs, you might want to go get your own, especially if it's the Department of Human Services, because you can't trust the labs.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm not, saying this disgruntled, I'm not disgruntled, I'm not trying to be angry about it. I'm just saying this is just the facts. And I've got a stack of evidence to prove it. So I then suspect, well, then I can't get a copy of the file. So then we've had court hearing. They've removed my son. I'm waiting to find out what's next. And I have this court-appointed attorney who does absolutely nothing for me. She does nothing. She wouldn't return my emails. She acted almost like if we're playing a game of chess, her position would be the staller. So she has this position in this, ring where she's, hobnobbing with the, people in the good old boys club, and she's stalling the case and keeping me happy, thinking what she's saying is true, and I'm like, well, that's not right. Because I'm educated. I'm telling her, this isn't what you should be doing. They illegally took my son. So I made a complaint against her and got her to write up a motion to review the magistrate's order. She wrote it up. And that wasn't, that took weeks, by the way, and was done without me at 6 o'clock in the morning. I still don't know what the answer to that was.
Wow.
And then, so I asked her to withdraw. I end up getting an attorney from the GoFundMe. I have the GoFundMe at the end of the article and tagged on to a lot of these interviews. And Jay Fisher is my attorney. He's an incredible guy. And I don't know if you looked up any of his credentials or if any of his bios are on any of my videos, but he is, he really came to bat for my son and my family, and he filed a writ of habeas corpus to find my son. I think we were at about 20 days at that point, or 20 something days. He also went into court this past Wednesday and, pointed out the different areas where, I can't remember when I talked to you. Was it Wednesday night I talked to you?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so then I guess I didn't update you, because Wednesday we had gone to court and my attorney finally had proven that they had broken the law so I would get visits.
Oh, good.
And that happened Wednesday. And then Thursday, the guardian ad litem, which if anybody doesn't know what that is, that's the person who is assigned to be looking out for my son's best interest. She appears to have quite a bit of power in this case. She was objecting to the judge. She was objecting to this. She was, so she comes in after I get visits the next day, and she emails my attorney that somehow overnight she has found the original transcripts from that secret hearing, the first one.
Okay.
And those transcripts do not match the order to remove him. And the order to remove him says that she will have all the decision making as to whether or not I have visits. So she changes the transcripts in complete order in an email. How she has this power, I don't know. And the order that we finally got to remove him was, I think, sent to my attorney this past Tuesday, like in the middle of the night, and I saw it for the first time this past Wednesday, a few days ago. So from what I understand, I don't even know if it's a lawful order. First of all, yes, they illegally took him. I don't know if the order that the judge signed, Rebecca Moss, the magistrate, I don't know if that's a lawful order, because it's stamped in the clerk of courts 4 days prior to being signed.
Oh, wow. Now,
and I don't know if any, and my attorney kept telling me that. He said, do you understand what this means? And I'm like, so they waited 4 days to, and he said, you don't understand. They're supposed to sign it and then stamp it. He said, why is it stamped and then signed 4 days later? What did they change on the second page? And I'm like, I have no idea. This is the first time I'm seeing it. His entire file is missing from the clerk of circuit courts. Nobody can find his file, which, if you don't know, the file's never supposed to leave the court unless you're doing, I guess, some kind of special hearing or having a hearing. So we're at the hearing this past Wednesday, and the judge can't even find the file.
Wow.
I mean, so bottom line is my son is missing. God, that's heartbreaking. And his file is missing. There's no information on his whereabouts, and it appears that the only person who really knows where he is, this guardian ad litem in this department, won't let anybody know where he is. So who knows where he is? It's just, and it's all been done unlawfully. I just, it's hard to wrap your head around if you're not familiar with what's going on.
Well, even for me, knowing that it has happened way too many times, it's still difficult to wrap your head around. I mean, obviously, this has been a concerted effort, I mean, they plotted to specifically remove your son before anything had even been found in court. They did absolutely everything out of the correct order. They did it illegally. I mean, so what has your contact been with this woman? I mean, has it only been through email? Has it been through phone? Has she stopped by your home? Did she try to see your son when he was at school? Or did you only come across her just in the process of, getting all this dumped in your lap?
Are you talking about the guardian ad litem,
yeah,
the one who has? Yeah. I saw her for the first time at that May 17th court hearing where they removed my son illegally. Okay. And her role from the Chief Justice Directive states that she's supposed to be doing an independent investigation on whether or not my son should be home. So my older two boys have called her, and I'll just give the audience, your viewers, an example of a couple of the allegations. My 22-year-old, who just graduated from Washington and Lee and just got accepted into Duke, has had an incredibly healthy childhood. One of the allegations on this list that this caseworker, 20-something years old, wrote is that I gave him chemotherapy. I just decided one day to give my son chemotherapy. So somehow I found chemo. By the way, he's never had chemo. So he writes a letter, pull up his medical records. He's never been sick like that. I don't know what I mean? This is what she writes. She writes in there that I've shaved my daughter's head. Well, my daughter's hair is almost down to her waist. These are things that have never happened. I mean, they were ridiculous. But if you were up there as the magistrate reading this and looking at me with no paperwork, you would say, God, this woman gave her other son cancer and shaved her daughter's head. Now she's got the baby. We better do something. So that's kind of the picture that they painted. Now, moving forward to what your question was about this guardian ad litem, her role is to do an independent investigation separate of the department so she can make sure that my son, what's true is what's true. She has not interviewed any of my son's professionals. Mm-hmm. She has not interviewed the doctors. She will not call back the therapist. She will not return back any of my family members' calls. Did you see Jeremy's letter in there, my son's letter?
Yes, that's in the case summary, is it?
I think so. And he writes this letter to the state. He writes it to the ombudsman, to the all the regulating agencies over this department. And he says, hey, this is ridiculous. My brother, I've watched my brother have seizures. I've watched him been sick. My mom's not misrepresenting anything. Plus, I never had cancer. I never had chemo. And he's like, this is ridiculous. Somebody call me. He's been reaching out to everybody. Nobody's called him. My other son's been reaching out. She's just not doing a thorough investigation. I was on a show just a little bit ago before I came on here. I think it's called We Hold These Truths. The host of that show found an article about this guardian ad litem when he was doing some research, and he brought it up. And because it's already out there, I think I could probably bring it up. Her name is Christina Brigham. Yeah. She actually, she must have some connections because she is a lawyer. She has no disciplinary actions on the bar. There's a police report last year for her for child abuse. Now she's the one, I have no record. Her record has been not sealed, but pressed. So she had a police report of dragging a disabled boy out of a car and him having to go to the hospital. Another report of falsifying visits with children and falsifying the information to have them permanently removed away from good parents. She's actually charged from the Supreme Court with this, and she's the one in charge of my case. Back in the saddle. And all she got was a couple weeks of a disciplinary action, which was probably a vacation. They probably sent her on vacation somewhere.
Is she located in Castle Rock, Colorado?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I have found some reports from someone else who had a run-in with her.
A lot of people have.
Yeah.
And so she's biased. She's saying she's supposed to be independent and have her own law firm. She hasn't replied to any of my emails. I have no idea where my son is. All she does is object to everything, change the script transcripts, work on this, work on that. She seems to be running the show. She seems to, at this point, even trying to override the judge's order. And I do want to say this. I have a really kick-ass attorney, and I'm not really a cursing person, but he really has, made me feel like I could breathe a little bit, because when you're getting bullied and attacked and falsely accused while you're trying to grieve the temporary loss of a child who you don't have any idea where he's at and he's disabled, it's hard. So Jay came in and he's filing to have her removed from the case for several violations in my case. There's things she's not doing, things she should be doing, ethical, professional, legal things that she has not done. And it's not because I don't agree with her decisions, even though I don't. It's because her decisions are based on nothing. Her decisions are based on money, most likely, and I don't know what the motivation is here, honestly. Well, I can't tell what the motivation is.
In other cases like this that I've seen, it seems like there is like an organization of people that are doing this for financial gain. I mean, you've got this woman, acts as guardian ad litem. She makes the call to have your child removed, or say that you have to get counseling of one kind or another, and they'll have specific individuals that have to be those people that you have to get the counseling from. You have to pay this fine. The judge is involved. I mean, it's really scary. I mean, and you had mentioned something about the medical aspect. Because of the nature of your son's disabilities. Can you expound on that a little bit?
What I can say is, prior to them removing my son, they had a conference with his doctor at Children's Hospital, and they had wanted him off of his seizure medication. And I just found out about this today. From what I'm hearing, and these are other sources, this is not me, but that there's certain children who have been taken from the, child services and are put into drug trials in these health homes and these medical facilities and these assessment centers that are near these children's hospitals, and they're put on having tests done and putting on trials. And I've had 2 people call me anonymously, saying to me that they know where my son is. Now, I'm not saying this is true, so God, please,
Sure.
please don't make, because my words have been twisted. Somebody at Fox wanted to do my story and twisted that up. I said, I have had 2 people call me and say, I know where your son is. He's in a medical research study, and he's in an underground medical facility over by the hospital. Now, if I were to tell you that, as a regular mom going every day through regular life, you would think I'm nuts. But when you have somebody call from NIH and say, hey, this child is here, or somebody who I don't know has his record number, his medical record number. I go check the record. It's the same. I'm saying, how do they know that? Where's my son? And why is this guardian ad litem not letting, let's just ask one simple question.
Yeah.
His siblings, his 2 older brothers and his sister, I'm going to try not to cry, his 2 older brothers and his sisters, why can't they talk to him? They're not being accused.
No.
Those are his siblings. Didn't Governor Polis just sign a bill out here in Colorado that is a sibling act, a bill of rights for siblings?
I was not aware of that.
There's a sibling act. You're supposed to have communication. So we've lost him for 45 days, but he's lost everything wherever he is. But the medical aspect, you're right. There's also money involved from what I'm hearing in this particular Twilight Zone world that I'm in right now, is that some of the parents that I've talked to, their children have been taken and experimented on for years in these different facilities because they do have rare conditions. And isn't it ironic that I'm being accused of fabricating his? And some of these children are taken because they're immediately adopted out. I haven't heard, and I probably wouldn't, I guess, because I'm not in that situation. So let's be fair. And I'm sure there's reasons that this organization, it's not all black and white, would have to remove an abused child. But I haven't just heard of any of those cases. And I've only heard of 3 out of probably 1,000 parents that have actually got their kids back. That's a problem.
You have heard of people who have gotten their kids back, or you have heard of people who have not gotten their kids back?
Out of about 1,000 parents that I've spoken with and connected with, I've heard of 3 of them that have gotten their kids back.
Oh, that's incredibly discouraging. I'm so sorry.
Maybe the statistics are different. I think Jim from Northwest Liberty News did a show last week. He had somebody on from Texas, and one of the women who's running for representative, she said that a couple of points. I think it was 655 children died last year under the department's custody in foster care. And then something like 120 died in their homes from abuse. This was all from abuse. So I'm like, wait a second, 6 times more are dying in foster care. So I'm trying not to let my head go there right now.
Right.
Because I haven't seen them. And the reality is some of these parents, honestly, haven't seen their kids in years.
And now, your lawyer, does he have any specific experience in this area? Has he dealt with other cases like this before?
He's never dealt with a case like this. My attorney is a constitutional rights attorney. He's an appellate attorney. He's a criminal defense attorney. Okay. He's also the former assistant attorney general for Colorado and Georgia, and he has a lot of experience with law. And I think that's where, if you're going to fight something like this, you really have to stick to, because no matter what I come up with, they're going to hit me. Like, for example, I go do my own drug test. They try to fake it. You go do this. They're angry. You're this mentally ill. You're not. There's always a reason to try to get you to try to kick the can for you not to see the child until they're permanently adopted out. I just want to clarify to you and to your audience, I don't have a abuse record. I don't have a drug record. I am not a violent person. I'm not somebody my house isn't dirty. We don't have, there were no allegations of any of that. The only piece of paper I have, because his entire file is still missing, says possible misrepresentation of illness as the reason.
Now, specifically with that, I mean, obviously, you know, based on your son's history, there are volumes and volumes of documented records showing that you have not made this up. I mean, he has been very sick and disabled for his whole life. So have you been in contact with his old doctors and his old physicians back in your former state of residence to get that for you?
Yeah, well, I have all his files. When you have a child of this nature, you generally have to keep the files updated. Not that I go through them, but I have them on a CD. I did call back to his doctor, Dr. Wong. I think you might see that transfer letter. That was his pediatrician from birth until he was 5, till he is 5. Birth to 5, and then when we transferred out here, when he was about 5.5, almost 6, Dr. Wong was trying to find a reason for his seizures and wanted to send him out here. I think that letter says so he doesn't have any more extensive brain damage.
Right. Yes, it does.
Yeah. So I mean, you can't, you know, at this point, I don't know what else they're going to come up with, but they're not producing him. And I don't know what happens, and maybe somebody in your audience, I don't know if you have a chat room, I can't see it on this particular camera.
There is a chat,
Maybe somebody out there knows, like, so that you do the writ of habeas corpus, then the first response is always by the department to, or by anybody, I guess, with the government agency that, you know, and this is what I found out, I'm not a lawyer, their first response was, instead of to produce the body, their first response was to dismiss it and say they did everything legal. And my attorney now is going to write a response to them, and we'll see what that says. You know, he knows how to. He's also going to include as an addendum their what happened this past Wednesday, where I lost my right to appeal. So I think in that writ that I sent you, it has, what does it have? No due process, no right service, no effective counsel, falsified. He put in there that they fabricated the petition and made it seem emergent. And the other thing, folks, you need to know if you're involved in anything with this department or this particular agency is, there has to be an emergency to take your kid right away. I mean, you know, you don't wait 4 or 5 months to casually kind of see somebody unless something, you know, and then all of a sudden pull them out. It's just, you know, nothing happened on that Friday to make it an emergency, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, it indicates to me, and I'm sure many other people in the audience, that, you know, the premeditated action of the whole situation. I mean, they were seeking out a reason. You know, they were observing you. They were looking for a reason to take him, and they were able to put it all together with a bunch of different corrupt individuals. Now, didn't the court also misrepresent some of the statements of your son's physicians as well? They fabricated some statements to make it seem like they had said that you were making up these illnesses or something like that. I thought I had read that.
Is that yeah, I think that's in Megan's article.
Yeah.
His head doctor emailed me and said that she told them, this is a sick child, don't take him. And they told her, this is the head worldwide famous, you know, not famous, but world. She goes to here to there to learn about, she's a genetic neurologist, you know, they told her, your input doesn't matter.
Really?
Now, this is the doctor. This is a 24, 25-year-old caseworker with a criminal justice degree or a bachelor's in social services telling this doctor, your input doesn't matter. We're going to take him anyway. That to me is mind-blowing. You know, I follow the doctor's orders because I want to make sure my son's taken care of. Here's an agency that's mission statement is to have the best, you know, interests of the child and the welfare of the child. You know, we're not going to take your opinion.
That's
just
mind-blowing. So sorry. I'm so sorry.
And they worded it like that. They worded it like that in the allegations. They said that that she had to control my frantic thoughts because this it's a hard process to have a special needs son of this capacity.
I would imagine.
And then so of course you're anxious. So they asked me, "Are you anxious about it?" I said, "Of course I am." You know, 2 years ago when my son had the big seizures, or a year and a half ago when we moved out here, which is why Dr. Wong transferred us, my son came home from the hospital without, you know, a totally different person. And if you've ever seen a traumatic brain injury, that's what happened. So here I had this child that I had this bond with, you know, how as a parent, you have all these little silly things you do with your kid, and these little, you know, just, you know, silly, stupid little things that you do that just keep that bond between you. You know, maybe a dad has it with his son or a daughter, and mom has it with the son or the daughter. And it's just something unique to the two of you with that, you know, bond. So here comes this child home, my son, and his memory's wiped out, and his sequencing is gone, and it's heartbreaking. And they're trying to say, well, you have anxiety about that. And my answer to them is, if you're going to remove children from everybody in the United States of America that has anxiety, then you better build some more homes, because I think 30% of Americans have anxiety. You know, I don't know what to tell you.
No, I mean, I completely agree. And you know, despite that, the very situation, you know, I mean, the scrutiny that you're being put under, the fact that they can just take your kids like this, you know, you might not have known it, you know, like totally when it started, you know, but I'm sure that over the process, you were getting even more and more anxious just having to deal with this situation, these people intrusively coming into your life, and putting you under a microscope. And you know, even if someone is completely innocent, you know, I mean, just the very act of having someone examine every portion of your life, I mean, that would be stressful in and of itself.
Well, it didn't appear like they were doing that. But I'll tell you what really stressed me out is when my daughter was in ICU hooked up to machines because they didn't follow her therapist's order. Now, you know, my teenage daughter cannot be interviewed without a support and without in her office, and they refuse. And I think when you just looked up that thing with that guardian ad litem, they will not interview my daughter. They will not let her record. They will not let her have a lawyer present. They will not let anybody else in there. And they say policy guidelines of the department. And I said, listen, you've lied in court. You falsified a petition about me and my son. Why would you think I'm going to put my daughter in that situation? They're saying, sorry, we got to do it alone. We're going to take her if you don't let us interview her. I mean, it's like a threat. They leave one at home, take one to kind of leverage it out. In my case, anyway.
It's just incredible. I
don't know what's going to happen. I would love to come back and give you guys an update, and I could have my little guy on here if he comes home, when he comes home. You know,
I would love that. Definitely. I'm sure the audience would too.
Yeah, I don't know where he's at. If anybody's out there I'd appreciate prayers. You know, I would love prayers. You know, if anybody has any ideas that they've dealt with anything like this before and it's worked for them, you know, and anybody's willing to help, if they can reach out to you, if you'd be willing to that. I also have an email, bringmichaelhome1111@gmail.com. I'm doing a GoFundMe, which goes to all my attorney's fees. I think because that's on the bottom of Megan's article.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to.
I've shared it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to do it. Oh, are you? Okay,
yeah,
I can't.
Don't worry.
See that.
It's okay. I've shared it. I've also shared your email address. Actually, I spelled it wrong, so we'll fix that.
Yeah. The Bring Michael Home 1111 is the one that I'm really only checking right now. What else could I tell you? Yeah, just pray that he comes home. My hope right now is that somebody will see him. And God, I don't want to start crying, because nobody has talked to him or seen him in 45 days. And, you know, my mind as a mom wonders, you know, not only is my heart grieving, but where is he?
Of course.
And why won't they let him talk to his brothers? Why can't he talk to his grandma and grandpa? Why can't he talk to his aunt? Why can't anybody talk to him? That seems very bizarre to me.
Someone has actually already emailed me about you. What is the next step? I mean, legally, I mean, where can you go? I mean, since your appeal was denied, I mean, what is it just waiting now to see if they are going to be willing to allow you to find any information?
I don't know what my attorney's going to do, but after this past week, I'm sure he's working on something. I'm trying to look through some of the like adoption sites to see if I see his picture. You know, I just keep doing shows like this to try to reach out to see if anybody knows anything, if anybody's heard anything. The weekends are tough because nothing's really open, and that was a lot of special time we had together.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry, Cyndie.
And well, what I'm doing is during the week, I'm really trying to press on and take any of the anger about this situation. And here, I'm going to get a picture. I got a picture of him right here.
Oh, please, yeah.
Yeah, this is him. This is him, guys.
Oh, he's beautiful.
Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, we can see, yeah.
The light's shining right in it, huh?
Yeah, no, he's a precious little boy.
That's him. That's Michael. So he has glasses now. So that was taken a couple years ago. I just happened to keep that up here when I'm talking. And boy, do I miss him. And I don't usually get emotional like this on these shows. To be honest with you, I'm trying not to, because I know that I need to keep my chin up and keep moving forward so I can get him back. Because the horror stories that I'm hearing about some of these parents, they never see their grandkids or kids again.
Don't feel bad. You know, I can only imagine what you're going through. You know, I mean, no one's going to fault you for crying. But someone has sent me a message and suggested that you contact Field McConnell. His email address is fieldmcc@yahoo.com. He has a contact named Carol Keene. She lives in Ohio, and people say that she can assist you specifically with this case. And that she works on things like this. Am I
supposed to be writing this down right now?
You go ahead and get a pen, and I'll let you know what it is when
Unless you want to forward it. Okay, hang on. Maybe you can say that for the other listeners too, if anybody ever. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
I'll put it. I'll put your email address into the chat, and I'll put Field's email address into the chat as well.
Okay, I can't see the chat. Who am I? Can you say that again for me?
It would be FIELD MCC. At yahoo.com.
Okay, and they want me to email that person?
Yes, his name is Field. Go ahead and email him. Let him know that you were on my program. Brief synopsis of the situation, and he'll be able to help.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I can't see that down there because if I see your logo, but tell him thank you, whoever sent that in.
No problem. You would actually have to have the show playing to be able to see the chat, so it's okay. Oh. Don't worry.
Sorry about that.
You're getting lots of prayers, though. Many people are very supportive. Many people who have been through this same situation to one degree or another, so...
Well, also, if anybody I can help, you know, there's a couple people that I'm helping out there right now that it's interesting. It's once you have this experience, you it seems to fill, as long as I'm doing something to help somebody towards finding my son and finding out his whereabouts and in resolving to get him home, or helping somebody else with theirs. It feels like I can be okay. You know what I mean? And I think that one of the tactics, and I'm not going to be so long-winded anymore. I think one of the tactics is let's make you so crazy or sad or mad that you lose your mind, and then we can say I told you so, and then you're right into the classes that you said you never needed. Right. I feel like that kind of it sometimes. So I'm trying real hard to work on my self-care. Make sure, folks, if anybody else is going through anything like this, you know, my suggestion would be to make sure you're really trying to take care of yourself. A lot of people don't, from what I'm understanding, they don't get right on the ball or can't figure it out. I think that whistleblower guy helped me a lot in the beginning when he told me what was going on with the business model.
Yeah.
I think that was, you know, I don't think a lot of people have that. So if I can get the word out and share that, hey, once you sign up for services, you now have a contract, or whether it's passive or not, with the department. Once you sign something, you now are in contract with them. So if I would have signed up for the appointment maker, do you know what that would have meant? That would have meant I'm agreeing with you all that I need this service because I can't handle my appointments. Well, what it really would have meant is I agree with you that I have all these things that I never saw until I got to the courtroom on what this lady wrote. You see what I mean? It's a passive confession.
Oh, yeah,
it's the way you're getting. Yes, you get it? Yeah. And I didn't get that till about a week into it. So let's say they have it written down that you're, you know, violent or whatever. That wasn't my case, and then you go in there and they say, well, you know, we want to offer this counseling for you with this person. She's so sweet. We think that would help you. Well, I do have a little bit of a temper. Let's say somebody says they go down and they want to take this because they really want to get their life better. They really want to help themselves. They go down and sign this thing. They get into a courtroom. All of a sudden, they've agreed that they're violent, Your Honor, because they've signed up for, They needed our therapist, whatever it is. And I think I avoided that. And that's what I'm seeing over and over and over again in these services. And they can last, and they push the services out for 18 months until you're adopted. The child's adopted.
Yep.
It just seems, I know I said I wouldn't talk long. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I want to talk about this as much as you need to. I mean, this is extremely important, and if we can help just one family not have to go through this, I mean, it's totally worth it. We can talk as long as we need to. I mean, I've seen a lot of people in the chat who have gone through something like this, I've seen it, in people around me as well. And actually, somebody wants to give you Field's phone number as well. Do you still have that?
Okay. Oh, I want to do a shout out to everybody that a woman from Texas contacted me, and we're going to have a march. There's going to be a march coming up October 1st, and I'll give you the dates, Red Pill, when I get them. It's going to be a march in DC, and they're working on, they wanted us to go up in March. It's going to be to help investigate and reform CPS. And we're going to be marching October 1st. They're getting campgrounds. I'm not sure of the route yet, but I'll send it to you so you can have, be posted on that. And anybody who wants to come and participate that's been a victim of this or has a family member, just wants to come out and support and think, we're hoping to get some oversight in this agency to protect our children. I mean, this is America. We need to protect our kids here in our Constitution.
Right. No, unfortunately, all too often, the exact opposite is happening here in America. I mean, the foster care system is essentially a revolving door for child traffickers. I mean, they just recently released a study from the State Department showing that 60% of American child abused slaves, we'll say, come out of the foster care system. They go in, and there is overwhelming evidence showing that they are going to be placed with an abuser, and it doesn't change. I mean, this is...
they're never found.
Yeah, they just disappear.
Did you see the article, if anybody didn't see it, of what happened in Italy?
I've only recently heard about that. All the coverage that I saw was in Italian, but it seems like, again, there is an organized group of people inside the government that are taking children and placing them into homes where they are going to be trafficked and going to be abused 100%.
What they were doing is, I think there were 18, and I'm not trying to go off the subject, but with my son not being home, you know how many people called me with that saying, is that go? And then there was the whole Megan Fox and James White, all of them talking about, is that happening here? And that's hard for me to go there when my son's still missing. And there's 18 people. The mayor, the caseworkers, social workers, were all involved in a ring. But what they were doing is they called it the little memory machine. They were doing electric convulsive shocks on the kid's head while they were holding up sex abuse pictures to try to make kids think they were sexually abused by their parents so they could remove them and sell them. That's what they were doing. They got caught doing that. Isn't that unbelievable? Brainwashing and shocking the kids, the babies.
I mean, it's horrible, but unfortunately, it's not shocking to me. It's like, I know that this stuff goes on. It's just awful to hear about it. I mean, it's one of those things that many people have a very hard time reconciling in their minds. Because people know that it exists, but it's not something that gets talked about enough. I mean, this is something that gets swept under the rug. It's too uncomfortable for people to deal with, but this is happening all around us. It's disgusting. Okay, let me give you Field's number.
46 days ago, to be honest with you. I must have been in my own Truman's world. I had no idea this was going on.
Yeah.
I had no idea they were shocking kids' brains. I got a call from one lady who said she escaped out of the kidnapping here. She saw all the little babies. They were experimenting. I mean, I got to watch out for that because I can't go down any rabbit holes right now.
Right.
But it's super enlightening, and I'm having to process really quick all this knowledge. Think about it. You get to see somebody who's not awake, and they're coming out going, and I think you can tell that I'm believable because there's times that I'm kind of looking off on, geez, is this really happening?
Yeah.
My son was kidnapped by a government agency. You can't call up a hotline and say that because they're going to say, sure, and you've got the schizophrenia next,
Right.
My son was kidnapped by a government agency. Who can I go to? Nobody.
No.
You know, who can you go to? That's why we're all powering up together. If anybody feels low or blue or needs to talk, email me, and I'll see if I'm available to do that, because I can't tell you the suicide rate, Megan Fox reported on this, is so high. Because when they rip the kids out, there's really no support.
No.
They count on the consensus of the general public to say, there's got to be more to the story. You know, I'm going to stay away from you for a little bit. Your kid was taken.
Yeah.
And then what you really need is the support.
Right. I can see how easily this would cause people to just lose hope. You know, I mean, the government, by all rights, they should be protecting us. You know, these agencies are there for the reason of our protection, you know, to step in and help us out in certain situations. When too often, in fact, they're doing the opposite. They're protecting people who are going to be harming our children, and it's the worst possible thing that you can imagine. Let me give you Field's number. Let me give you Field's number.
Yeah. And I want to make a point. I don't think it's everybody, because it never is. No. It's not everybody in the whole Department of Human Services, you know what I mean? And there's people who join up and go to school and really want to do this to help kids.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, but there's ringleaders. What's Field's number?
It's 715-307.
Okay.
8222.
Is that a
I don't know
what time. Do you know what time zone that is?
I don't know. No.
Okay. Okay.
You know, and obviously, everyone, it's not everyone in the government. You know, it's just enough people.
Yeah, I want to make sure of that. Yeah. But it's kind of like when you're looking for a new car, you see it everywhere. And when you just start to, you start to have this, it's like, wow, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and it's people that are doing it, and then I'm sure that there are people who are looking the other way. Then there are people who absolutely have no idea that it's taking place. They're just blissfully ignorant. Looks like Field is in Texas, so that is Central Time.
Can you still hear me okay?
I can still hear you, yeah.
Okay, I got a call come in, sorry about that. Somebody here within this organization, I looked at her, and I don't know if she'll ever hear this or not, but I think she actually doesn't want to be doing this. I looked at her and I said, why is this happening? Why are you guys doing that? And her response to me was, my hands are tied with the powers that be.
Wow.
So you tell me.
So that's straight from the top. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, have you thought about perhaps going to a higher level law enforcement agency like the state police or the FBI or anything like that?
I've contacted the FBI twice, and I have not received. They told me that if anybody was interested in pursuing this, I would get a call.
Wow, that's just incredible.
And I said, well, my son is missing. His file is missing. He's disappeared, and I don't know what to. And they said, they said, who took him? And I said, well, the Department of Human Services. And the FBI said, oh. In other words, there was a reason, at least that's what it sounded like. So I did try. If anybody knows a way to get the evidence there, I think you have my case summary and timeline. That's not all the evidence, of course, by any means, but that's kind of a nutshell to show you, hey, I didn't do this, guys. They stole them.
Well, I know that I have lawyers that watch the program, so, I'm going to put it out there. If anyone has the ability to help in this situation, please do reach out. I can put you in contact with Cyndie, and we can do what we can. Just had a couple of people who had sent some super chats throughout the interview. Cyndie, let me just give a quick shout out to them. Jeff Stewart, thank you very much for that super chat. Phil Thompson, the same. Ben Schwagel said, that's as bad as the bad guys in World War II. Sorry, I cannot say that word out loud because that will immediately shut down the stream. Q sent me 4 said, Linda Collins Smith was the senator from Arkansas who was murdered on 5/28, or between 5/28 and 6/4, and she was ready to bust open a case about CPS ties in Arkansas to child trafficking and WW. I don't know what that means, but she needs help from your congressman or senator in Colorado. If you can potentially reach out to them, I don't know how much that would do. But
I've already done that. Yeah, okay. Thank you, though. I appreciate that.
Worth a shot. Susan Huber, thank you for that super chat. Same to Otis T. Baggins. Nick the nurse said, thank you for bringing this to light. God bless the family and all the others who are victims of this horror.
And Diana Davenport said Field is actually in Plum City, Wisconsin, so still Central Time Zone. But his veteran ranch project is in Texas, and he may move there. For now, it's Wisconsin. All right. Well, we are running a little bit over. I have shared the GoFundMe, and so has several of my mods.
Oh, thank you.
Of course.
I can't see it. I really appreciate that. I generally on these shows I've been forgetting to talk about that, and my lawyer is not free, and I am not rich, so it's certainly not a plea to help go on a vacation or get my hair done. I'm trying to find my son, and I really appreciate anybody that contributes anything. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to say that this was set up by a friend of yours. So is that correct? Because it looks like it's written from a different perspective. My dearest friend is a single parent of 4 children.
Yeah, so, my friend in Georgia set that up. Asha.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that who's on there on the GoFundMe? Asha, yeah, she told me she did that. Yeah.
So I just want everybody to know that so that you are at the correct GoFundMe. And then Alexandria Occasional Cortex just sent a super chat too and said, for Lucy, taken 7 years ago. Sounds like another child that was taken by CPS.
Oh, God bless. I'll be in prayer for him. Tell him.
Yeah, so sorry for that. All right, guys. Well, anything that you want to leave us with, Cyndie, and like I said earlier in the interview, as soon as you have any information, please do come back on the program. I'm willing to have you back at any time because
thank you so much.
All of us are praying for you. We are thinking about you and Michael, and I don't want to leave this story alone. I want to follow it to its conclusion, and that's when he's back with you at home.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you to everybody and spread the words, and I just want to say thank you, and just thanks for the prayers, and I thank you for letting me share my story to hopefully get him home sooner. I appreciate that.
All right, excellent. Well, I'm so sorry once again that this has happened. And as I said, we will continue to pray for you. Thank you so much for joining us, Cyndie, and I'm sure that we'll be in touch together soon.
You got it. You guys have a great night.
All right, thank you so much. Yep.
Happy 4th of July, too.
Happy 4th of July to you as well.
Okay.
Yep,
bye.
Bye-bye. All right, and let's see here, you guys. I do need to get my next guests on the line. I'm actually going to need to send out a new invitation. That is a heartbreaking story. I almost cried myself there. I had to hold back tears. This is the absolute worst thing that I could possibly imagine happening. And it looks like a lot of you have gone through similar things, being forced to deal with these agencies and their corrupt practices. Let me see. Here is the new link for Yensid, and here is the new link for Wayne. Let's see here. Oh, you guys, I'm really disturbed by everything that we just learned. This seems to be the type of situation where there really is no happy resolution. You're working against the state. You're working against the state. And what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to be able to trust, but there's no one that you can trust in this situation. Please do share this program, you guys, because I think that anybody who is anybody needs to see what's actually going on in our Children Protective Services system here in America. Never let CPS into your home. Never sign anything. She was in Colorado. I see some people still asking. She was in Colorado. Very disturbing. I saw too many people in the chat say that their children were stolen. People who haven't seen their kids in years. And if that had happened to me, I don't know that I would be able to carry on. This was a very, very tough story. Very tough story. You guys, I do apologize too. I got my air conditioning running yesterday, and I woke up this morning with a sore throat and it's like I have a cold. But I don't know. I don't feel all that hot, but I did not want to miss this program tonight. You guys, next we have Yensid coming in. Yensid is Disney backwards, and you'll hear the story about that. And then we're also going to be speaking with my friend Juan O. Savin. Anybody? Sounds like there's a lot of people out there watching Field McConnell, so you should know who Juan is. I'm going to drop that GoFundMe one more time into the chat, you guys. If you don't get it this time, you can get it by going to the description of this video. Yeah, Gypsy Nurse Kathy, when you know you won't be able to sleep. Yeah. Oh, Greg, you too, buddy. I'm sorry to hear that. You know, this could have happened to me. This is why I'm bothered by it, you know. Someone tried to do this to me. They tried to manufacture something to say that I could not take care of my child. And I fought them off. And all question of my fitness as a parent was overcome. Cyndie did just say thank you to everybody. And we need to bring Michael home. We need to bring Michael home. Please be praying for Cyndie and Michael. And let me just speak to my next guest so I can get him on. All right, looks like the meeting link is invalid. Let me try this again. Copy invitation. Thanks, guys. Thank you for being here tonight. To be here to see this, because this is very important. You know, we have a system in our country where they are using us and our children. They are stealing our kids. Too many children are disappearing. Too many children are being sucked into this system and disappearing. All right. Just working to get my next guest on the line, you guys. Sorry about that. Having a bit of a technical difficulty. Hopefully they'll be here in just a moment. But in the meantime, I am going to show you the article that started all this. And I'm going to include that link into... I've done this already, but I'm going to do it again for anybody who came in late. Let's see. Here we are. This is the original article from PJ Media by Megan Fox. And here is the link. I just dropped it for you guys there. Now, I have a question for you. LT, is this LT of And We Know? Is this like a backup account that you're using, or is this just somebody else named LT? Nathan Scheil, he said, I had a friend that got taken away from his parents years ago, and his foster dad abused him. He died in 2007. Nathan, I'm so sorry to hear that, man. That's sad. That's very, very sad. Also, Christine Seibel said, great work, Red Pill. Thank you very much for that, Christine. I appreciate it. All right, so also, let me see, there is a website that I wanted. Actually, we'll show you this. Oh, Juan. Looks like Juan is here. Juan, are you there, sir?
I'm expecting that I...
Juan, I can see your name on the screen, but I can't hear you. Qzillion 432 just gave a super chat. Thank you very much for that super chat, Qzillion. Appreciate it. All right. Let me see. I do have a website I wanted to show you guys. So I'm sure you've all heard, if you watch Field McConnell and you've seen 107, that you have seen information regarding the 4th of July. Well, I spoke on this a little bit last night. Here is a website from Jennifer Mack. Jennifer Mack, this is a do-it-yourself JFK Jr. wearing a MAGA hat mask website. So you can go here to this website. I'm going to go ahead and drop this in the chat box here. You guys can check it out. Go download this mask and you can make it yourself. Yensid, who's going to be here any moment, we're just waiting for him to jump into the Zoom meeting, and we're waiting for Juan to get his microphone working. But Yensid has created a website where you can go and you can upload photos of yourself wearing the JFK Jr. mask, because this the whole idea here is that somebody has suggested that JFK Jr. is going to show up on July 4th. Now, I don't know that that's going to happen, you guys. I've never been a particular believer necessarily in this as a theory. But, I mean, I think that maybe it's possible it's been floated around just to just to freak out the deep state. Can you imagine how upset Hillary Clinton would be if she actually thought that JFK Jr. was alive? What a mind meld, or excuse me, mind screw. She would just be freaking out. All right, Kimberly Bogan says, God bless Cyndie, her family, and Michael. Stay strong. We are all praying for you. May God bring this little boy home safely, definitely. Nathan Shaw said there was more to that story, but they won't let me send. That's okay, Nathan. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. So right here, Jennifer had created a tutorial on how to do this yourself. Let's see. Let's go ahead and watch the video.
What do you think about the JFK Jr. mask that I made available on this radio show at?
Well, I think that as an audience, if the audience wants to be identified, to be known between each other, they should be carrying their mask with them. If they're at a Trump rally, maybe they can find the right moment to don their masks for a minute or two. The rallies end with some great music, and maybe they can do their sing-along and use their mask at the same time. I think it's important that we all be of the same mind.
You can't wait on their affirmation. You can't wait on their approval. You can't wait on their support. Sometimes you just gotta run and look behind you and say, everybody who wants to run, but I can't stop running because you're not running. Listen to me, hear me. You can't stop chasing your dream just because somebody in your life is chasing it. You can't stop believing in yourself just because somebody in your life won't believe in you. You can't stop chasing the dreams of your life just because when you know when you do it, you're gonna have to do it all by yourself.
Guys, are you there? Steve, are you there? Yensid?
All right, there we go. We got it?
Oh, got you. Juan, you're in here.
Yeah.
Finally.
Boy, that was a struggle for me. I sure apologize to your people. I thought it was easier than it was. I don't know why it wasn't cooperating with us. So
not a problem. I'm glad you're on the phone now. That's all that matters. You guys, I'm pleased to announce that we've got Juan O. Savin on the line. How are you tonight, Juan? Are you there?
Yep. Well, I'm here. You hearing me?
I can hear you. But yes,
yeah,
I just asked how you were and introduced you to the audience.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. Well, we obviously have so many interesting, fun things going on. We've got a great weekend, weekend coming ahead of us. But I did hear portions of your last interview, and I wanted to add just a couple of things to that. the maybe a reference point that some of your listeners, probably not very many, would remember. Back in the mid-'90s, we had a number of cases involving CPS and all of the really evil things that were happening in that period of time. You know, this is 25 years ago, and the horrors and atrocities that were occurring across the country in Child Protective Services just off the charts. And so let me just touch on a couple of things that might give your researchers and people who are looking at this some starting points that they're not aware of just because they're new to this subject matter. And I'll hit a couple things that are way off in left field that a couple of your people might go, oh my gosh.
Juan, real quick, before you continue, I've got a lot of people saying that this is not you on the phone. I would just like to say that I have a much higher tech system than what Field uses. I believe that when you call into Field's program, it's basically just playing on a speaker. On my system, Juan is actually calling through the computer. So yes, it is going to sound a little different, but no, I have no reason to suggest that this is not the actual Juan O. Savin. This is him. This is really him calling in, and thank you very much for doing so. Okay, please continue with what you were saying about CPS.
Well, the real push in this latest incarnation, in my personal opinion, happened during the Bush and especially the Clinton presidencies. It went to some level that was just beyond comprehension for most people. So, for example, when President Clinton came into office, we had a lot of people that were gay rights that, you know, felt this was their coming out time, and coming into the second term especially. So, for example, the governor of the state of Washington, Lowry, he was very into gay rights. And so he essentially, by executive order in the state of Washington, said that because gays had been discriminated against in the way that children were placed, that it was a civil rights issue, just like had occurred with blacks in the 60s. And so they needed to correct this disproportionate situation where children hadn't been being placed with gay couples or gay persons by placing children with gays. Now, in the regulations, it said that it was supposed to be, you know, kids that had a proclivity or a leaning, a tendency towards needing to be, you know, in a gay household where people would understand them and all that. But they're placing newborns with couples as though they are, you know, have a proclivity towards being gay, and so they needed to be placed with these couples because they were going to be discriminated in how they were educated if they were with a regular family. Bizarre things like that. So for literally the first several thousand kids after Governor Lowry took office, they were all being placed with gay couples.
Like exclusively?
Well, they would argue that that's not true and everything else, but it really was true. There was a very, very large number that were placed with gay couples and families. Now, anybody, I don't know that you would have access to it or not. It's even possible maybe you'd be able to get him to do an interview. But Mike Reagan, President Reagan's son, was a radio host during that era and did a large number of interviews on this exact subject with people that were doing these fights. And you have to understand that the reason Mike Reagan is unique, when Mike Reagan was young, and I apologize, I'm right by an airport, and I've got a lot of racket in the background, and I have no control over that. The problem was that Mike Reagan, he lived in, his dad was an actor, his mom was an actress in that era, and so he was placed in boarding home type school situations. He went to summer camps and stuff like that a lot because his parents were working, and that was the way Hollywood kids were raised in that era. And he was actually being groomed by one of these monsters during a summer school situation. Once his parents became aware of it, the person was caught, convicted. But Mike was actually a victim of one of these people. It was a predator sexually, and then was, he would be threatened with the pictures that this person took of him, that they'd be shown to his parents if he did anything or if he told anybody, etc. So Mike has written a book about that experience.
I believe I've heard of that.
How horrible it was. Yes, and so Mike was very brave, really, and kind of coming out and talking about this at a very difficult time. But he's taken this issue to heart and has really been an advocate for children caught up in these kinds of situations. And so in the mid-90s, when he was the number 2 radio host in the country, number 1 in afternoon drive time radio, had 600 affiliates carrying his show. And Rush was number 1 in the morning. Mike Reagan was number 1 in the afternoon. In fact, in 96, they were so effective in that 95, 94 era, which I'm glad to have been there during all of that time period. Mike and Rush were made honorary members of the 96th Congress because of their work in getting Republicans elected in the 96th Congress with this pact they made, if we're elected, we'll do this and this and this, that Newt Gingrich put together. But they were the radio proponents that really brought the nation together in many ways, the conservatives together in rallying conservatives to the cause to get out voting and to, come up against these things were happening. And so one of the key things that Mike was going after was the horrors that were happening in the Child Protective Services. Now, some of the stories, one of the most pivotal ones, and a handful possibly of your listeners would be aware of this, and I've seen the internet's been wiped clean of all the history, and I'll have to see if I can pull up some things for you to show people, but was the Hope Robbins case, Robbins, out of Washington. And that was a young girl that was taken 13 years of age at her new junior high school that she was going to. In fact, the exact same junior high school that Mary Kay Letourneau worked at, who was the predator of the young boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Billy.
The same junior high school. She was called into the principal's office, and then they literally decided that she was under threat from her mom because her mom wouldn't let her see a boy who had given her a marijuana cigarette. They just moved to Washington from Kentucky, and the part of the story that is not public, has never been public. I believe I'm breaking this in your show. It's the only time it's ever been said publicly. She was a witness, and she moved to Washington because she was a witness on the drugs being shipped through Arkansas and into Kentucky and other locations around the country. And she had helped provide the evidence that led to a lot of the convictions that led back to Mena and in Arkansas. And so when she provided that evidence for her own safety, for her child's safety, she moved to Washington to hide out. The only thing she didn't understand, her daughter had been born prematurely and was called a Webley child. And so Webley is this trust that was set up in the 60s, or 70s, I should say, where children that were born prematurely, it was decided that it was the chemicals that caused children to be born prematurely, chemical exposure, and it was hard to tell which chemical might have caused a specific incident. So they made this big, huge trust with hundreds of millions of dollars in it, and all the chemical companies have to put a little bit of money into it. And then any child that's born prematurely can have access to this Webley trust as though the reason they were born prematurely is because the mother was exposed to chemicals. In her case, her mother was a hairdresser. So Hope Robbins was born prematurely, one of the earliest preemie babies ever to survive at 5 months, I think 3 weeks at that time. And so she had this trust fund that she had access to. Her mother had never tapped it, but she was signed up for it. When she came to Washington State, she had to be signed up for that in the public school. The public schools have to know about it, because if they decide that a child has a learning disability or has problems, then they can tap that fund for assistance, for educational assistance for the child. But it's like putting a target on the child, because here's millions of dollars available to the system.
Right.
If they get that child. So as soon as she signs her daughter up, all of a sudden the counselor wants to talk to her and visit with her and everything else. They saw her as a paycheck.
Yep.
And so she was being targeted behind the scenes, and the counselor's taking all this extra time. And it was a group of lesbians that were in there capturing these kids out and putting them with friends, etc. Because, get a kid, and then if you're taking care of a child as a foster child, and the child has learning disabilities, has special needs, well, shoot, you can practically quit your job and just take care of the child, run them around in a van all day, and take them to every doctor's appointment, all that, get a sex toy and get paid for it, is literally what it ends up being.
Oh
and I know that I'm just going to drive some of the people crazy out there that don't want to hear this and everything else, but in my opinion, after looking at this for a very long time, that's exactly the case. And those interviews that Mike had on in that era, at that time, the witnesses, the people that came forward, that's what they talked about. And so, amongst other things, just as an aside, just because it comes to mind this second, it's been bothering me over the last few months as I've thought about Pizzagate, for example, and all these other things. One of the interesting things that came out back in that era, and who knows, maybe we get lucky and he's listening to the show right now. There was a young man in Spokane, Washington at the time, and he had run away and had gotten to Western Washington, gotten to someone that was connected with Reagan's show, where he had an affiliate in Washington State. One of Mike's affiliates was KBI, one of the largest talk show stations in the country at the time. And they got him on the show. And so he'd been, as a teenager, he'd been in the system for years. And here he was, a very good-looking, at 15, 16 years old, he's already 6 foot tall, blonde hair, a little bit of a curl, looked like an Adonis type of a physique, extremely good-looking. So he and other boys have been placed at a home over by Spokane. And part of their counseling, and I hope your listeners will understand, I'm saying this so that you are well armed in these fights, but I'm not trying to do it to be prurient. Mm-hmm. He and others of these boys, the counselors would talk to him about everything, including, their stresses and strains in life. And so they were counseled that they need to masturbate to relieve tension. And in fact, they were going to be forced to masturbate just to make sure that they were doing it. And then they would have to produce a bottle with some sperm in it when they were done, so that they could prove that they had actually ejaculated.
I can't. This is what I was just talking about, Juan, is that this is one of those uncomfortable truths. These are the kinds of things that nobody likes to hear about, because it is just absolutely so astounding. It completely destroys your paradigm, and it doesn't matter how much you know already about the crap that goes on in this world, how sick these people are. When you hear someone actually talk about it, you immediately recoil. This is the kind of thing that we want to stay as far away from, but unfortunately, it's also the kind of thing that people need to know and they need to be educated about, so that you can protect yourself, so you can protect your children. Keep your kids as far away from these people as possible.
Well, and listen, I mean, so this young man realizes that twice a FedEx truck is coming by and picking up packages. And oh, by the way, they happen to have a nitrogen cooler in the nurse's office. They're freezing the sperm and shipping it out. They have pictures, files on each of these boys, and these women that want to have babies together are picking from a box or a file cabinet of pictures of boys that they want, their description and their blood type, and they've been tested. They're healthy. They don't have any diseases, anything like that. They can pick the kids in couples in various parts of the world. This young man is very stressed out when he's describing the situation that he might have children all over the place being raised by people with ideas that had no resemblance to how he believes or thinks. And here's his kids, and he has no way to find out where his children might be.
And how many times?
Because
has this
they
happened?
were, and how many times it happened, and then you think of Pizzagate, and then the questions about, what else are they doing with these children that they're having?
Wow. Yeah. It is just absolutely mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing.
And so that still to this day troubles me. Now that was broadcast live back in, I believe that would have been about 97 or so. And I think even Mike Reagan could vet that story for your listeners if he was ever available or wanted to talk about it. It certainly is not. I'm not talking about something that can't be proven by other sources.
Right.
And any of those young men that were involved in that, when they realized what was happening, they ran away.
Right.
These are young guys, and they realized, oh my gosh, what's going on? And they ran away, and they're deeply upset at what could be taking place. Now, nothing ever happened at that location. I mean, I can tell you the horror stories. It's beyond comprehension. One of the houses, the Peggy Jeffries house. This is a name that was in the public purview. It's not a name that is something private or whatever. That was a emergency placement house in South Seattle, Washington, and that emergency placement house had hundreds and hundreds of kids being placed in it for temporary placement every year. So it was a 4-bedroom house. One is occupied by the mother, one is occupied by her adult daughter, and one is occupied by the adult daughter's 2 young girls. And then there's 1 bedroom left and a little basement area. And they, at times, on a night-to-night basis, had 18 to 25 kids placed at that house.
18 to 25 kids in a single house?
Yes, in a single house where there's only 1 bedroom available. And so the state is paying them for all those kids. They get, a couple $100 a night for taking an emergency placement. The kid could be brought there by the sheriff or somebody else to just keep them there because they've been taken away from the parent. So one of the interesting thing in the records related to that house was that there was not just a handful, but dozens of children under 6 months old, and they're listed as a runaway.
Under 6 months old, and they're listed as a runaway.
Not mother and daughter as a runaway. Not mother and daughter as a runaway. Just a small child, and it's a notation runaway. Well, who ran away with the child? The child didn't leave on its own. The child was placed there with an emergency placement runaway.
Wow.
And one of the children that I remember very specifically, Lamika Johnson. Lamika Johnson's a 13-year-old girl. She was placed at that house, ran away, placed at that house, ran away, placed at that house, ran away, at Peggy Jeffries' house. There was 24, as I recall, different reports by police, firefighters, neighbors, taxi cab drivers, everything you can imagine. It just went on and on. A couple dozen different reports. Doctors, not one, but a couple of different doctors and nurses made emergency reports to CPS that this young girl, 13 years of age, had cuts on her body that were ritual in nature, including around her vagina.
Yeah.
And so they report these horrendous things. And what happens? The girl gets placed back there again. There was a black pimp that was grooming her, and he would pick her up and take her off while she'd get fed. In this house, there wasn't even a doorknob on the house. The doorknob had been removed by somebody. The CPS paid for doorknobs to be replaced, allegedly, because neighbors are complaining, and they'd be gone. So the house hasn't even got a lock on the front door, and they're just running these kids through there. And then the kids aren't there. They're all runaways half the time. So, for example, one other thing that should get this audience very concerned. Now, this is 25 years ago, and 30, because these events have been going on for years prior to even Mike Reagan's broadcasts and other national hosts at the time, because there was a whole flurry of hosts around the country trying to cover this subject and do a good job of it, and they did. People came out and talked about, how CPS was completely off. It had gone to some new level that was not, couldn't be excused.
Yeah.
And there was people trying to sue and do different things to stop what was going on. And the state just, fought every lawsuit, brought people in. They settled a handful here and there, but they fought through it. And then the various hosts that have been covering these types of stories started losing their affiliates in various places. So, for example, KVI was a conservative talk show host station, got bought up, and then they changed their format to classic music, and they let all their hosts go. And before that happened, in the months before that, they had decided not to renew their contract, for example, with Mike Reagan. That was one of the first places across the country was carrying a show. It was an anchor for the network. And other places, these hosts that were pushing this subject, that were on it, they started losing affiliates. There was pressure behind the scenes happening. One of the or two of the hosts that were covering it there in Washington, and the reason I mentioned Washington, because it was one of the worst in the country. It was getting more money per capita per number of actual state residents, I think, than any other state in the union at the time. In federal matching money. Because remember, if you get a special needs child, and anytime a child is indicated to be gay or coming out gay, the interpretation is that is a special needs child. If you're a special needs child, then you get extra federal matching money as a special needs child. So if they just take any kid off the street and they place it with a family, they get X amount of dollars. If they decide to classify that child as a special needs child for medical, emotional, mental reasons, then there's additional money, dramatically more money for a special needs child. And then if there's private trust money like the Webley Fund, which was like a cash register, an ATM, then they can come back and they need, special van, and they need special housing, and they need a special counselor 24 hours a day, and it just goes on and on. And they start checking off these boxes, and these kids become worth literally millions of dollars to the system. And then you need more social workers and more this and that. So Washington was one of these states where they had it down to an art to classify and reclassify these kids. So back, 20 years before this, before the 90s, there was an investigation going in to look at how Washington was running some of these operations related to the kids and all that. The FBI showed up in force with a couple dozen agents, as I recall, and they were going to go in and start auditing the books in the state agency the next morning. That night, they had a fire, destroyed half the building where all the records were. Like a $300 million fire or something. Of course. So to think that this is just going on now, these people have been well practiced. This is institutionalized.
Yeah.
And I have to say, all of that has to be balanced with. There are lots of honest, sincere people that a person goes to school, they want to help people. They may have had even problems in their own life, and they just want to do something that's meaningful in life. And they want to be counselor. They want to help kids out. They go in sincerely wanting to do this, and they get in the system. And the hard part is that these monsters are in there working side by side. And you want to be in the system. You know there's a little problem here and there. If they know that you're not, a secret handshake person, they kind of work around you and give you stuff to keep you happy. But these people are also in there gleaning and looking and working with each other to kind of move some of the stuff off to their own side. And so it's a game where you don't realize that there's some bad people in the mix. And so the good people, they're almost a foil. And the people in the system, they're just trying to do good. When you get them off to the side, there's some problems and they see things a little here and there, but the system is generally good. Well, they're not in the secret handshake crowd. They're living a little bit in denial. They're trying to protect their own understanding of things. The reality is the system is totally screwed up, and money is a huge part of it. They're using these kids as a paycheck to build these federal programs, to control the schools and control the way things are done. And if you think that I'm overblowing it, my only retort would be that you don't understand the magnitude, the gravity of the situation.
Exactly.
It's far worse. It's far bigger than the average person wants to understand. And part of the thing that happens, you live a normal life, your kids are there, you're not in the system, whatever, and you don't want to hear about this. And hey, we have professionals that deal with it. And I don't want to think something bad because I have a relative that works for this agency, or I have a friend that works there and they're not evil. And you're just painting them all with a broad brush, and it's only one or two here or there. And so you're apologizing. There shouldn't be one evil situation. When the Peggy Jeffries house situation was exposed, and it was just one house, nothing was ever done that absolutely stopped that. It should have been stopped. The whole freaking for 5 blocks around should have been freaking taped off as a crime scene. This stuff that was going on there is beyond comprehension, and the documentation was off the charts. So just one side, there was a wonderful attorney, had a decent law practice, had been around for some time, came to understand the problem, talked to his wife, talked to his kids, said, I'm going to take part of my practice and go after these cases. And unfortunately, it can be time consuming and expensive. They don't have any money. This particular case, I'm going to help the mother. We're going after him. And we'll probably make some money down the road, but it might be 5, 6, 7 years because the state's going to fight everything we do. Maybe they settle sooner, but I'm gonna kind of put things in line. He actually took a mortgage out in his house, and he was going after money. He was going to make some money on this with the crimes for his services, and he was going to help the mother out. But he was also it was going to cost him a lot of money up front because he had to fund it himself. So he goes in, he starts through the stuff, he gets discovery, he gets, miles of documentation. He's got stuff, for example, the girl Hope Robbins, after she was taken from her mom when she's 14, the people that she's with, they take her to strip clubs. And they would get money while she's doing it. It's in the papers. It's in the state's own records. This is not talking, from outer space.
Wow.
And the people involved, and she supposedly has a girlfriend who's lesbian, but the girlfriend is one of the people she's placed with for her care. But because the girlfriend hasn't turned 19 yet, even though she's an adult, the sexual relationship, she's being groomed is what she's really being done.
Exactly.
And then taking her to the strip clubs on. Because she's not 5 years older than the girl, she's like 4 years and 9.5 months. They can't charge her with a crime. It's an adult and a child situation. Things like that, it drive you crazy. In fact, the representative from the state of Washington who was a sheriff's head of the sheriff's department in King County. He actually looked at that case, the whole Robbins case, and said, the law is the law, and and the prosecutor's not going to go along with it. I'd like to charge this person as an adult. And then all the other stuff, because nobody else would come forward, and the girl had been groomed. She's in the system, and she's with these people, and just horrible. I mean, I get almost apoplectic when I remember all the things that happened in that time. So today,
Juan, real quick,
if you can imagine 25 years, yeah.
We've only got 5 minutes left, 6 minutes left.
All right, well, let me just wrap it up. Just one sentence thing. So all these years, this is far more advanced today than it was then. This problem, when we talked with people about it at that time, people wanted to turn their mind off. Well, that's why it's here now. When you get to this issue, it's about everything that we consider important as Americans, as conservative. There is no aspect of the issue. This is, in my opinion, if you cannot protect the children, you can't protect any of us. And these monsters in our midst who are preying on these children, that's on our dollar. That's under our watch. We are responsible for them. And if we can't protect them, then everything else, it's just, it doesn't mean anything, because we can't protect our own kids, and we can't protect our neighbor with their own kids. To turn a blind eye on this is one of the most horrendous things that can happen in civilized society. We're allowing these monsters to use our assets, our tools, our government, our tax money to prey on other neighbors, other children. And any given day, it could be your child, it could be you. Yeah. You cannot look the other way on this. It is one of the most, if not the most critical issue before us, and it goes all the way back to Pizzagate and everything else.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people uncomfortable in the chat, a lot of people upset about the fact that we're talking about this, but this is one of those red pills that you can't not swallow, guys. Okay, this is something that
let me just add one thing. I just want to tell you one other thing. It only takes a second. At this same house, there was a van that would come by twice a week and pick up kids that wanted to go to the Satanist meeting in Federal Way that was held twice a week at a house in Federal Way, and then they'd get something to eat on the way home. The kids weren't getting any food at the house, so kids would go along just going to get something to eat after they go to the Satan meeting. And this is, we talk about, kids having after-school stuff today, and we're all appalled. Kids were being taken, not just from this house, but they were picking up at other houses and taken to the Satan coven meetings in Federal Way, Washington, from houses. And these are young teenagers.
Yeah.
This is in the 90s, and this was talked about in the public forum, and nobody went to jail. I'm telling you that you cannot think too big on this subject.
No.
And it wasn't just in Washington, it's across the country. We're a different generation. It may have happened during a prior generation. We now have the watch. We cannot look the other way. We have to engage on this issue for these parents and these kids.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, listen, in the couple of minutes we've got left, everybody wants to know about the 4th of July. And we've got that website that was put together by Jennifer Mack, where everybody can go and download your own copy of JFK Jr., create your own mask. And then Yensid, are you on the line as well? Looks like your mute is on. There you go. Yensid, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. And you've built a website right here where everybody can take a picture of themselves with a John mask, JFK Jr. mask, and then you can upload it yourself. Now, the whole idea here is, it doesn't matter if JFK Jr. is alive or not, you guys. It's the idea of who he was and what he stands for and what that means to the deep state. And even if JFK Jr. was alive, his life would be in danger if he came out and showed himself on the 4th of July or any day. But if everybody shows up and they all are wearing JFK Jr. masks, it's like that scene in V for Vendetta with Guy Fawkes, you guys. So let's talk about this website here, Yensid, and what you're hoping that people are going to do with it.
Okay, so essentially it's all based on the old idea of mailing lists, meaning that's how the internet got started. So all you got to do to submit your image is just send an email to jfkjr@yensid.com, and it'll show up on the Google Groups page, and then that gets scraped for images. They get put on a big mega memes folder type thing, and voila, ready to go. But everything everybody sends up is all archived and good to go.
Excellent. And it's also my understanding that you're going to be putting up a video and working with Jason Was a Gentile, one of our favorite guests on the show. Is that right?
Yeah, so I put everything together, started building this folder, and all of a sudden I get this notification from Google that your movie is ready. And
Okay.
I pop it up, and it's got some open source music, and it's a slideshow of all the images that have been uploaded so far. And I'm going, what the hell? And so I'm like, oh, this is cool, but the music sucks. And yeah, so I took the whole thing and redid it to Jason Was a Gentile's Deplorable People song.
Excellent.
And that's on the website. I can't get it to play embedded. If anybody else can, let me know. But
it looks like it's working for me. I'm showing it as an embedded YouTube video. I can see it right here on the screen. So
right.
I'm gonna throw the link for this in the
Yes.
chat box, everybody, so you guys can go there as well. Go check that out. And then, of course, we've also got the Jennifer Mack website where you can download your own copy of the Junior Make America Great Again hat photo. It's a great photo. You can use that to make this for yourself. But are you guys going to be at any place in particular for the 4th of July?
I'm not. I'm going to be hanging here trying to keep up with all the image submissions. Right now, the scraping is manual, but don't worry. I have lots of bags of popcorn and lots of coffee.
Good stuff.
But the idea is we're going to start with this JFK Jr. mailing list, but this is a way to beat the social media giants. This is using all their tools against them. They can't screw with email. They can't screw with discussion forums that are owned by a corporate entity. So this is something where we're going to build subjects like Q and maybe 9/11, Keep America Great, hundreds of lists, and it's all one place that I'm the gatekeeper, and that's it. There's nobody else.
Excellent. Juan, would you explain to us the reasoning behind the JFK Jr. mask? I got a couple of people saying that they don't understand.
Well, you need to hide in a crowd, and so they snipe us out, just like talking about the CPS stuff. They pick out an individual just like they picked out our president and killed him because he was going against the machine. Anytime somebody, the nail that sticks up, they go after him, they take him out, and now that voice is silenced. If we present ourselves unified, closing ranks together, then it's harder for them to pick us out of the crowd. President Trump, his close friend, is that image. And if we can hide in a crowd, then we can all be present in that spirit. We grew up in the shadow of the assassination of President Kennedy, and we are all a product of that event, but we're adults now. And we might have been a kid by the side of the road when it happened. But we're adults now, and we're not going to let it happen again. We're not going to let the president and his family carry the whole weight that we as a nation need to take. And in one spirit, we're going after these monsters. And it's similar to the CPS thing. So Field is offering some rewards for people who get a picture of them with their mask of Junior at various places. And then Yensid has been posting those pictures and put them into the videos. People will be able to add their picture, and those will be rotated into the video periodically with the music, and they can send it out in their social tweets, etc., to friends like that and be part of it. And we are all that child by the side of the road, living in the shadow of those assassinations, those false flags, and we're not going to take it anymore. We're taking our country back. Slaves no more.
Excellent, excellent. Now, I just want to say, got some people who don't want to do it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But, I personally like the idea of what this represents to the deep state. I mean, I remember when his plane went down, and I remember the way that everything went with Bill Clinton not searching for him and Carolyn and her sister. I remember Hillary Clinton sweeping into that Senate seat. And I've often thought, how would things have been different if that night would have went a little bit differently? The deep state.
Well, remember this: the Q operation goes further back than you understand.
Oh,
or
yes.
People readily recognize, and the preparations for that went back significantly further. The need to go after this monster that we call the deep state has been understood and present for a very long time. And so a lot of things were done in preparation to preserve the opportunity to come back and fight when we were in a better position. And that moment is coming very quickly, is arguably on us now. The fight's not going to be over in a day or a week, but we are ready to re-engage in a meaningful way right now and take this to them, take them out.
All right, excellent. Well, I just want to say we're running over, you guys, and I know that people were a little upset that I said we were going to have to close the show, but we've been on for over 2 hours, and I need to get the dogs and go on a walk. I just want to say thank you to everybody who has been here tonight. I do need to give a couple of thank yous for super chats. Let's see, Jody L792. She said, "I love Juan. Listen to him on Able Danger and McAllister. Please tell him we're so grateful for all he's shared and is doing. God bless." Tom Price gave a super chat. Thank you for that, Tom. Puggy's number 2 frog. Can Juan please stress the importance of love in the plan? I think that we'll definitely touch on that next time. Sean W said, as Q said, these people are...
Can I ask one quick question or a favor too?
Go ahead.
If you could put a link to that interview from last week. Space Shot put it on, and we had tremendous amount of people that came to it, but there may be other people in your chat tonight that are not aware of that interview. I think it's an important one. If they haven't listened to it, maybe you could link to it.
I'll be happy
to provide them that opportunity. And then a shout out to Space Shot if he's out there. Thank you so much for posting that, and for all the people that have commented. I am just can't tell you how amazed I am at the responses. We don't do any of this for money. There's nobody doing anything to make a buck here. We're doing it because we love our country. And just like with these children and with this mother, if we don't close ranks to protect these people and to work with them and to help them, there's nobody there for them. This is the community that has to go back and change the world, and that's what we're here to do right now.
Excellent, excellent. And then also one more thank you, or two more, excuse me. Teresa C, thank you for the super chat. And Alexandria Occasional Cortex says, I serve at the pleasure of the president, as do we all. What I'm going to do, guys, is when this show is done coding, I'm actually going to be splitting it up because it's really important. I think that sometimes people don't get all the way through the shows because of how long they are. So this way, we'll be able to share the first half of the show and then the second half of the show. If you guys want to do that once we're all done, you will get the notifications as long as you have those turned on. If you don't, then just check back later on tonight. You should be able to find it. So thank you, Yensid. Thank you, Juan O, for joining us tonight. And I'm sure that we will be speaking with both of you again soon. I'd like to thank everyone in the audience for joining us. God's Guy, thank you for that super chat. Love you too, bud. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News for Saturday Night Livestream. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.